And we are live. Exciting to be here with Jeff. Welcome, Jeff, to virtual for those out there, virtual wine tasting. I call it virtual for you wine tasting, but you'll be tasting wine as well.
Jacob, thank you for having me on your budding show. It's very exciting, the new age of winery broadcasting.
Yep. Looks like we got a few people watching us live already, so that's good. Urge people to share with friends. And today, just in terms of the wines we're going to be drinking to set up the show for everyone, we are going to be drinking the Blue Sea. Correct me if I'm wrong. Blue Sea Rosé from Covenant.
It's almost right. It's actually technically the Covenant Israel Blue Sea Rosé, because this is the rosé we make in Israel.
I was close. There we go.
And then on my end, we have the Red Sea Rosé from California, because I don't have any of the Covenant Israel Blue Sea here in California, where I am quarantined at the moment. So I'm doing my best, and this is the Red Sea. Get it? It's like kind of like the perfect Passover wine, but because Red Sea was already California, we couldn't do Red Sea in Israel, so we have the Blue Sea, because I've noticed that the sea in Israel, especially from my window in Tel Aviv, is very blue.
Yes, it is. And if we get to it, and hopefully we will, I will be partaking in a little while after we talk rosé. I will be doing the, here we go, Covenant Israel 2015 Syrah. Covenant Israel.
Right. A very exciting wine that I made at Jezreel Winery with Jacob back in 2015. And I was going to taste with him the same wine today, but alas, I can't find it in my cellar here at home, and I can't get up to Napa where I have my warehouse. So we're going to taste on my end the famous Mapa label, the second vintage ever made, Covenant Israel Syrah 2014, also made at Jezreel, where I started making wine back in 2013.
Okay, so let's get going. And here we are. I'm just reminding some people to chime in using, I don't have a staff to do this, so I'm doing this all myself.
You're a natural.
Yeah, thank you. Get my hands dirty here. So first of all, anybody who wants to order any of the Covenant wines that we will be talking about can go to covenantwines.com and order away.
Well, kind of. Actually, the 15 is a library wine, and the 14 is a library wine. I don't know if we have those for sale.
If somebody writes you an email and says, "I need this wine,"
yeah, then I'll go. We'll find it if we have it. But I don't think you can just order it off the website. But we do have some 19 different wines on our website that you're welcome to order, either in Israel or in the States.
Beautiful. So let's go. Let's talk rosé. And now I want to tell some people a little bit about Jeff, which he would not say himself, which is he actually wrote the book on rosé. So that is not just an expression. Jeff. Tell us, what does that mean?
Well, so back in 2003, I used to make a rosé in California called Solo Rosa. We were the first and only winery that only made rosé. And I kind of saw this trend coming back around 2000 when I started the winery. And I'm also a writer. Some of you may or may not know this. And my publisher was drinking our rosés and said, "Can you write a book about rosé?" And I said, "Yeah, let's do that." So I do have a book called Rosé, the World's Most Versatile Wine. It had recipes and reviews of some 250 rosés. And I tried to give people an idea of what is rosé. So I've loved rosé since I lived in the south of France back in the 1970s, and I continue to love it.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to pour a little bit of this rosé, and you'll tell us about it. Yeah. And if I like it, if I feel my will, it's my first time drinking. This is again the 2019 Covenant Israel Blue Sea Rosé. I have not had it yet.
Okay. Very exciting for me. I'm gonna have it with my 2019 Covenant California Red Sea Rosé. I have, in fact, drunk the Blue Sea Rosé because I did make it with my colleague Ari Earl, who both Jacob and I have the good fortune of working with in wine production in Israel.
So we're going to be drinking this. Before I go any further, and I'll remind people more during the rest of the show, we have a special opportunity to be working for the first time with some new friends of mine from Vingard Valise, who make pretty cool, snazzy suitcases for carrying your wine. And a little prayer as we start the show, that someday soon we will be traveling again, and we will want to carry our wines with us again. So right now we're not flying anywhere, but someday soon we will. So I'm just going to show you just a moment. Here we go. So if you want a chance for a free wine suitcase, just comment below, "I want a suitcase, please." That's all you need to do, and you'll get a suitcase. I don't get anything for any sales of these suitcases. It's just a new friend, and he said he wanted to give away a suitcase on the show. And I said, why not? Give away your suitcase. I will not be getting the suitcase. You will be. So just say, I want a free suitcase in comments below, and they will pick someone at random. I will not. So I will not play any favorites. But if you want a cool, snazzy suitcase to carry your wines, you can win a free suitcase. I'll remind people later on again. I'm going to turn that off. Isn't that cool? I know how to do that. Turn that off for a while. Let's go back to our rosé. So I'm looking at this bottle, Jeff, and besides the fact that it obviously is beautiful, does it tell me what kind of grapes this is from on the bottle? I don't see it. So
no, it doesn't tell you what kind of grapes we use, because traditionally at Covenant, and before that at Solo Rosa, we used whatever grapes we could use. That's the whole point of rosé, to kind of take red grapes and turn it into pink wine. And currently, we use in Israel Carignan for about half of the pink juice. And we pick those grapes and press them, and right away you press them so you don't get hardly any skin contact and you get very little color. And then we put the pink juice in barrels and let it ferment with native yeast. We don't even add yeast. The rest of the juice comes from a mix of different grapes. Syrah is probably predominant among those grapes in Israel. And then in our California, we use, instead of Carignan as our base wine, we use Syrah, which we also whole cluster press and ferment in old neutral oak barrels with native yeast. And then we use kind of a mix. We use a little Pinot, a little Syrah, a little Cabernet, and sometimes a little Grenache as well. It really depends on what we've got and what we've bled, because the rest of the juice is from what we call bleed, or saignée is the French word. In other words, we pick the red grapes and put them in the tank and let some of that juice flow out of the tank within minutes, sometimes within a half hour, while it's still pink. And we also take that pink juice and put it in barrels. So there are two ways to make rosé. One is the whole cluster press. You make it like a white wine, and the other is saignée. Which one's better? Well, neither is better and neither is worse. They both have different attributes which we like, and that's why we do a blend of both.
okay. And when you're going, let's look at this, compare the coloring on these two. Is that something that's influencing you while you're doing the winemaking, or you're more interested in the taste?
Well, I always tell my associates, my friends, that you don't drink color. And I still believe that, although color can be an indicator of taste. If your rosé is quite dark, chances are there's too much color, too much tannin, perhaps. There was too much skin contact. And so it might not be the crisp, light, fresh drink that I'm looking for in a rosé. The French, in the south of France, their grapes have almost no color. So their rosés have almost no color. and the French actually believe that this is the best rosé. They are mistaken, as the French often are, and you can quote me on that. However, I have succumbed to marketing pressures thanks to those same French people, and we are making rosé much lighter than we used to because of their mistaken commentary.
Okay, well, let's take a little bit of drink. I have not had any wine yet today, so
I haven't either.
I'm going to.
It's 9:15 and it's 9:10 in the morning, so I'm spitting also.
Right. Well, usually I would have had something to drink already today, but I have not had anything to drink. I was busy with homeschooling because my kids are all at home and trying to catch up on work. So I'm going to say my bracha, or my blessing over my wine. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen.
Amen.
Bless the fruit of the vine.
Okay, מה אתה חושב? What are you thinking?
Well, first of all, as a friend of ours, Jay Bucksbaum, says, you know, if a wine makes me smack my lips like that, I want to get every drop, that's already a good sign. So
Good. Right.
that's already a good sign.
And mine is, if a wine tastes really good right after you've had your cappuccino at 9:15, that's also a good sign. I'll have another sip.
So here, I want to ask you a controversial question. As the man who wrote the book on rosé, a lot of debate over obviously you can do whatever you want, but should one be drinking rosé only from the same vintage? Or is a Blue Sea Rosé 19 in 2 years still going to be fine to drink?
Well, as I wrote in the book 20 years ago, before anybody was even thinking about this, typically rosé is not a particularly age-worthy wine. I value rosé for its freshness, its brightness, its racy acidity, its ability to highlight whatever's on my plate, practically, whether it's, you know, a hamburger, or a steak, or fish, or a salad. It's a very versatile wine that is enhanced by its lightness, okay? As wines age, they typically don't get lighter. They get heavier and richer as a result of oxygenation or other aging processes. So ideally, no, you don't want to, like, you know, sit on your rosé and wait 5 years or 10 years and then see if it's any good. I did, during the course of my research, go to Tavel in France, which was kind of the capital of rosé back in the day, and had a 1953 Tavel rosé that was outstanding. But it had morphed into a very different kind of a beverage than what I'm looking for in my average rosé. So drink them sooner than later. That's my advice on rosé. Now, there are a lot of generalizations that wine writers in particular like to throw out there for their readers, because it makes life simpler. Oh, don't drink, do drink, you know, good vintage, bad vintage. Wine is much more complicated than that, or complex maybe. So it really depends on your rosé. Some rosés might only last 6 months. Some might last, you know, a couple of years. You have to kind of taste and decide for yourself. But there are some very misguided writers out there, I will not say who make blank generalizations about don't drink anything, you know, that's not 2019. Don't drink the 2018s. This, my friends, is absolute total bullshit. Okay? Do not believe these people. They are misguided. They know nothing. Okay? And if they want to learn something, they need to come to my winery in California and study at my feet. And we will taste all sorts of rosés, 17s, 18s, 19s, and then they can decide, oh, does rosé age? Well, yeah, it does. As a matter of fact, rosé age, it gets a little different. But do not believe these people. They are dangerous to the enjoyment of rosé. In case you're wondering, I'll drink to that. I'm not going to spit that. That was a heartfelt diatribe.
That's what I was looking for. Better for it to come from you than from But let me segue. It's not a rosé issue, but somebody just sent me a picture today of one of my own wineries' white wines, our original white blend from 2014, which
I made with you.
Yes, which they found,
yes.
in a wine store. I'm not going to say which, in South Florida, and they sent me a picture of it. So, you said what you had to say about this, about a wine like that, a 2014. Do you think it's going to be holding up well? Do you think it's not going to be holding up well? Should the store not be putting it on the shelf, or up to everyone to decide for themselves?
Okay, that's a great question. Look, again, as I said, it's not simple. We should do another show sometime about age-worthy whites, okay? Because I'm drinking 2003. I had a 2010 Chardonnay that I made, not Covenant, for a client.
Oak Chardonnay.
Well, oak. Most of my wines are fermented in barrels, but yeah, it was fantastic. It was still. Yeah, that's fermented. Yeah, it's fermented in barrels. All of my rosés are fermented in barrel. Okay, and they're still bright and fresh. They're not oaky. They're neutral oak barrels. Barrels do something different than give oak flavors, but let's not go into that right now. Back to your question. So really, depending on how wine is made, that also has a lot to do with its ageability. Does it go through malolactic? Does it not? Is it barrel aged? Is it tank aged? How is it stored is also a very important indicator. So for example, if a wine has been sitting in a wine shop in Florida without air conditioning, or if it's been sitting in the window, I've seen this in Florida, a whole beautiful display of wines in the window, even in an air-conditioned store, those wines are going to probably age quicker than they should. So I think the consumer should look, if they can see the color of the wine through the bottle and it looks kind of brown, it's probably oxidized and over the hill. But really, it should be the retailer's responsibility to test and taste older whites now and then to determine whether this is the kind of wine they want to be selling their customers. The only way to know is to taste it, find out.
That is what I say. But somebody had sent me a picture of the wines and asked me what I thought, and and I said, look, I have had some 2014 Levanim white blend from Jezreel recently, and it was quite nice. It's actually a very different blend than that wine became later on, and we don't even make that blend. We stopped making it completely. But so I said, go for it, and if you like it, great. And the other wine was a 2014 Adunim, and I said definitely snap it up because that is drinking quite nicely right now.
Can we tell the story about Levanim? Do you know the story of Levanim?
Levanim and Lavan?
Yeah. So very briefly, I think those of you who came in late. So when I first came to Israel to make wine back in 2012, I didn't know exactly where I was going to make it. And my good friend Ariel, who I mentioned earlier, who makes wine with us at Covenant Israel and also works with Jacob and Yehuda, he suggested that maybe we should, make our wines at Jezreel for a while to get started. And so we did. And our first vintage was 2013. And we were already making a wine in California. Our Chardonnay is called Covenant Lavan, which means in Hebrew white. Why do we call our Chardonnay white? That's kind of redundant, but nonetheless, we called it Lavan because we were famous for red wine, and we thought people would need to know that this is not the Adom, this is not the red, this is the Lavan. So we got the trademark for that, believe it or not, for white. We own the wine trademark for white in Hebrew in America, not in Israel. And in Israel, you can call it, obviously, you can call your wine Lavan if you want, but if you want to call your wine Lavan in America, you're going to have to deal with my lawyers. So back to Jezreel. So Yehuda wanted to call this wine, Yehuda being Jacob's associate, Yehuda wanted to call the wine Levanim or Lavan also. And I said, and he said, how about Levanim, which would be whites, okay, a blend of whites. And, I didn't want to bite the hand that fed me at the time. So, I said, okay, I'll give you permission to do that. So Levanim, I guess, is okay. Americans, yeah.
side of the stories. The other side of the story is that when we got started making wine, we had so many things to catch up on in terms of our knowledge. And then we got to the issue of branding and what are we calling the wine. So we basically had a red blend and a white blend at first, and some single vineyard varietals as well. But we had a red blend and white blend, and we were being super lazy. And so we said, okay, the red blend we're going to call Adumim, which just means red. And the white, let's just go for Levanim, which means whites. But that's that is
well, perfectly logical. I'm with you there. And in fact, the average, I don't think the average American consumer will get confused, but with Levanim and Levan. So, no problem.
Well, I have to apologize to everyone. I meant to open this earlier to let it a bit, and then I got caught up with some technical issues.
Okay.
So I want to get to this one as well.
All right. So we're done with rosé. I hope you are going to drink a lot of rosé, sheltering at home or not sheltering at home this spring and summer. Rosé is also good in the wintertime too, but right now as we're in spring and entering summertime, really drink bright, fresh rosés. Yeah, drink Blue Sea and Red Sea rosé if you can find it. But there are a lot of great rosés on the market. By the way, excuse me, allow me to just finish this, Jacob, because I talk too much. There are, again, I want to go back to those misguided bloggers and who have said bad things about, an entire vintage of Israeli rosé. Don't listen to them. They are wrong. They are misguided. They are even, I might go so far as to say, ignorant. I know they taste in very bad conditions, or they can't taste at all because their commentary is so ludicrous that it's not worth talking about anymore. Let's move on.
Yes, Jeff is not an opinionated person at all. Anyway, we're now going on to continue with Covenant. We are going to move on to a wine which I know well, and I have tasted before, but I'm very happy. And I have not had any in quite some time, which is the Syrah 2015. Before we keep going, I want to make some shout outs to some friends who joined along the way. I don't know if they're still here or not, but they did comment before. So Josh London, we love you. Glad you're here. Shalom Nefta, happy you're here. Mitch, good for you to be here as well. Thanks everybody for being here. You can keep sharing, tell everybody else. We're going to be talking for another few minutes. And I want to remind people, a few people have done it already. If you want a chance to win a free suitcase, a beautiful wine suitcase for when we all start traveling again, just leave a comment, which some of you have done already. Just leave a comment saying, I want a suitcase, please. And our friends at Vanguard Valise will choose one of you at random and give you a free suitcase. But now back to our wine. So there's a couple of things I want to ask you, Jeff, before we get into actually drinking it, and I'm also stalling so that I air this out a little bit. But
that doesn't need airing out. That wine is tasting great right now. You'll see.
All right. So first of all, just tell me a little bit about the label. I'm going to hold it pretty close here.
So yeah, you probably can't see, but above the Covenant Israel logo, you'll see a kind of an indentation or a gray thing that looks like maybe the state of Florida, but it actually is on the right side of the bottle, the coastline of Israel.
Exactly.
And most of the rest of that is the water, the Blue Sea.
Mm-hmm.
We started making Syrah in Israel because I believe Syrah is one of the best grapes to grow in Israel. Certainly not the only best grape, but it's one of the Mediterranean varietals that I think works extremely well in Israel. And I was, as many of you know, I started Covenant California back in 2003. So this was kind of a decade after I started making California Cabernet with Covenant. This is what I would call our flagship wine from Israel. But the first two vintages, 2013 and 2014, actually had a different label. It had this label. And a lot of you, a lot of our customers are real big fans of this label. I kind of like this label a lot myself because that says it all. Covenant Israel, which is the name of our wine project in Israel, Covenant Israel. It's all about taking Covenant, taking our brand, our winemaking, and coming back to like the land where it all started, which is Israel.
Well, I just see a comment from Josh London that he prefers the old label as well. So
yeah. So I changed the label for a number of reasons. There seems to be some confusion, mostly in Tel Aviv, about the borders of the land of Israel, and there was a lot of commentary and actual pushback, mostly among Israelis, to tell you the truth, not among Americans, and it led to a lot of political arguments at the expense of wine enjoyment. And so we decided that I've made my political statement, and we were going to make a label that was equally beautiful, but perhaps not as inflammatory. Hence, in 2015, we went to the new label.
It's better. I find it more elegant, but that's me.
I think it is more elegant. And listen, I'm a Zionist. Obviously I'm a loudmouth, and yes, and I like to get it out there what I'm thinking. So anyway, we have for the moment changed labels. I still own this one, and we might bring it in for special bottlings in the future.
I have a few of those bottles as well. So,
I'm pouring the 14. You're gonna have the 15. Let me just say that. Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, we ask you to talk about what's particularly Syrah, and then I wanted if you could comment on the Israeli Syrah versus Syrah back where you are, California Syrah, and then also just give you another question to think about while you're answering the first one, which is a lot of people say Syrah is difficult to sell, difficult to market in the U.S., and if you could comment on that as well.
Okay, well, let's first start with the end part of the question. Syrah is difficult to market in the U.S. Some of the most famous Syrahs in the world are not difficult to market in the U.S., but they're not kosher. Okay, so the audience is a sophisticated wine drinking culture that values the great Syrahs of the Rhone Valley in particular, and will pay as much as $1,000, $2,000 a bottle for the top wines in this category. They include Chav. They include, let's see, Chav is, of course, my favorite, actually, but there are lots of them. Chapoutier, Gigal. These are all very famous names in Syrah, Rhone wineries. And for some reason, Americans, are not used to, they don't even know they're drinking Syrah because the French don't put Syrah on the label. They just put Rhone Valley or Saint-Joseph or whatever it is. And so I have a cat here that's bothering me. Let me just get rid of this cat off. Come on, get off the table. Okay, there you go. So it's weird. What can I say? 20 years ago, Syrah was a little bit of a problem even in the non-Jewish market, but they seem to have gotten over it by and large in America. And we make Syrah that sells very easily in California. It's quite lovely. It's some of our highest scoring wine, scores higher than our Cabernets in Wine Spectator, for example. Okay. And we're getting 94 points for our Sonoma County Syrah, only 93 for our Cabernet. So what can I say? And then the kosher market's a little bit behind. Our people are lagging, and they're not open to the idea that there is no one best wine. I love Cabernet. Don't get me wrong. I love the Cabernets we make, and I love many other Cabernets made by many other winemakers around the world. But I'm hoping that that our people will start to expand their horizons, expand their way of thinking. Perhaps all this time to drink at home, they'll be drinking more Syrah, opening more bottles since they only have to pay retail. They don't have to go to restaurants and get it, and they will see that it's not better; it's equally good. Now back to Israeli Syrah versus. Okay, so we did a tasting. We did a tasting in Tel Aviv a couple months ago. I did a tasting at the with Gal Zohar at his wine school in Tel Aviv, and I brought some of my favorite Syrahs, really expensive ones from France, really expensive ones from California, and some of my favorite Syrahs from Israel. And we did a blind tasting with a very highly educated group of tasters. So nobody knew what they were drinking. And then we voted on, what are our favorites? Well, the favorite one of all of them happened to be the Covenant Israel Syrah. It was the 2016 not with the Mappa label. That was very, I didn't plan, I was hoping, but I didn't plan it that way. And it was really, really nice to see that one beat out some of my other favorite Syrahs from France. California also did very well. And the French ones did well, but the French wines tend to open up slower. And even though I decanted everything and well in advance, the French wines were quite complex, also delicious. There wasn't a bad wine in the batch, but certainly our Israeli Syrah, when it's great, is every bit as great as the greatest French Syrahs or the greatest California Syrahs. Yeah. And you got to believe it. It's not like they're all as great, because it's a wine by wine kind of discussion. But and we don't have lots of great wine yet in Israel, because we're still, even though we're the oldest wine region, I think, in the world, we're also one of the youngest. So we're figuring out which terroir is best for Syrah, which might be best for Grenache, which is best for Argauman. I mean, it depends. So we're getting there, but there is absolutely no reason to disparage Syrahs coming from Israel, or any wine coming from Israel for that matter.
Amen. And 2015 as a vintage is unique. Why is it unique?
Well, it was a Shemitah year. That made it really unique. Shemitah is like the bane of every kosher winery's existence, because while it may make sense in Torah, it doesn't make sense in the marketplace, and certainly in the finances of any winery that's only making kosher wine. It's a great challenge for us, but that's another show, Shemitah.
We'll do a whole show about Shemitah, but I just want to tell people who don't know what it is, because a diverse viewing audience, both live and in replays, which is Shemitah is the letting the land rest every 7 years, and as a commercial winery who have ongoing expenses, it's quite difficult to just stop making wine once every 7 years. So every winery deals with it in a different way and observes that tradition in a different way. But the result of it is that those of us who do make wine during the Shemitah year, like my own winery and Jeff's as well, there is a special kind of holiness that is attached to Shemitah year wine. And while I believe you should never waste any wine, particularly good wine, and particularly excellent wine coming out of the Holy Land, but for Shemitah year, you are doubly commanded to only open up a bottle of Shemitah year wine if you're going to drink the whole thing. So don't leave a drop to be wasted. I've started to drink this already. I can promise you it will not last the night. I'm taking this home tonight. My family's all stay at home. We will be finishing this bottle, Jeff. Don't worry. It won't see tomorrow.
So, L'chaim, I'll drink to that.
But also, there's a question.
Wait a second. Wait, I just tasted the 14.
Yeah.
If anybody watching the show still has 2014 Covenant Israel Syrah in their cellar, they need to go down there like today or tomorrow and open a bottle of this for Shabbat tomorrow night, because it is showing just great. I don't know if it's going to age another 5 years or 10 years and get better, but it's really great right now. And now is the time to drink some of this if you haven't already. And the 15 is in a similar state. I think it's showing just fantastic, because I've had some in the last 6 months. It's rich, it's round, it's bigger, it's more full-bodied than the 14. And that's partially because, do you remember we had those like miserable sandstorms in 2015? And the sand came, a lot of grapes were picked before the sandstorms, but the Syrah in the bottle of 2015 that Jacob is drinking was not. And actually, it's a blend of two vineyards, one in Golan, in Tel Fares, and the other, where were we? I can't remember if we were in Tzivon. It might be all Tel Fares, or it might actually have some of the Tzivon from the Galilee Syrah, which is also a fantastic vineyard. that we now source a lot of our Syrah from in Israel. So, but anyway, the sand perforated some of the grapes a little bit and allowed the excess moisture to evaporate even faster. So those grapes came in really, really, really ripe and with high sugars, and which created, bigger, richer, more full-bodied wines. Great for Purim. You drink a bottle of 2015 Covenant Syrah, and you're going to be flat on your tuchus very quickly. Pretty high alcohol, but not out of balance. Don't believe what we put there. We lie. But
Jeff, I have to say to you, I was tasting the wine, and I was just saying to myself, wow, I wonder what the alcohol content is. Not because I thought it was high. I was just intrigued. And then you just said that, and I looked, and I'm astonished. 15.4%.
Yeah, it's pretty high.
You definitely don't feel it when you're drinking.
No, and that brings me very briefly to another story that we should probably devote a whole show to, and that is, alcohol in wine, alcohol on labels, and people who make up their mind about a wine before they even taste it because they've seen like the alcohol's at 15.2 or 15.4 or 14.5 or 12.9. I don't know. You got to taste a wine. Wines, you don't taste color, nor do you taste what's written on a label. You've got to taste the wine. Now, what's written and the color may reflect what actually is on the label, but if you're making your opinions based on what you see before what you taste, you are tasting backwards.
Well, we have to wind up the show sometime soon, although we could talk for hours. But
I could drink. And by the way, I don't have to finish the 2014. Right, because it's not Shemitah. But you know what I'm going to do with this? I'm going down to our California winery shortly, right after the show, because I'm going to work with Jonathan on our California wines. And I'm bringing this because we're going to have this for lunch. I think I'm going to cook some burgers on the grill down there, and we're going to have this 2014 for lunch because it's dynamite.
Right. Well, it gives me a chance to plug, by the way, anybody who's once we can all travel around and so on, go visit Covenant Wine in Berkeley. They actually, I originally knew them. A lot of people know, and they know Jeff is a Napa guy, but he decided to go urban to some degree, and the winery is actually in Berkeley, so it's pretty cool. Go check it out. I have had the honor of visiting there several times and drinking with Jeff and eating. You made me lunch. I don't know if you do that for everyone, but you made me lunch.
Special people get lunch.
Yeah. So we have a whole bunch of suggestions in the comments, which only I'm seeing, not Jeff. So for future shows, so we're not going to tackle it all today. But one shout out from Noam Cohen, who said we had the Covenant Red Sea 2015 over Pesach, and it was excellent. So
great.
The Red Sea 2015 was excellent. And then, but then a quick question, which we'll tackle more in a future show, which is from Mitch Schneider, who's just a special friend, so I have to treat his question right now, which he wants to know your predictions about the Israeli crop after such a rainy winter.
Well, a rainy winter doesn't necessarily affect the crop that much because the vines are dormant during the winter. Now, what they can do is the soil and the vines can store up a little more moisture so that when they come out of dormancy, they might come out sooner than they normally would, which would simply make the harvest start possibly sooner. But that's also a broad generalization that's really based on nothing, because harvest conditions are going to change it. If it's really hot, really dry, well, that doesn't make things go faster. It might actually slow things down because the stomata in the leaves of the vines close up and the vines kind of go dormant while they're not dormant at certain times of the growing season. So it's better to have more rain in the winter than not enough rain. I can tell you that if we have a choice.
Okay. And by the way, most people know, but for anybody who's tuning in who does not know the Israeli wine scene, and we are devoting most of this conversation to the Israeli wine scene, it's one of the wine regions in the world that actually controls the amount of irrigation, the amount of rain. Well, there's no rain, the amount of water that gets fed to the vines for many of the months preceding and then going into harvest. We don't usually have any natural rainfall between April and November, outside of some freak situations. So that leads to some interesting winemaking, which again we can talk about in depth at a different show. But just for people who don't know that, Israel does not have any rainfall, so we don't suffer from any things like frost or hail or anything like that. So we are blessed in that way. Somebody else wants to hear a show about our takes on the rating systems, given what you said before, Jeff, about certain bloggers will not be named. So,
yeah, well, actually, but that should be also for another show. But I don't know how many people watching this know that I used to actually be one of those raters, not a blogger. I used to actually give the scores for the Wine Spectator for 8 years, and actually for Wine Enthusiast for another 6 years after that. So I actually am the only winemaker on planet Earth that has ever given Wine Spectator scores. Thank you very much. And I'm the only winemaker on planet Earth who actually knows how those scores are created. And someday we could do a whole show on that, and I would be happy to talk about it.
It's a teaser. So I want to thank everybody for joining in. Again, in the replays, you are welcome to leave a comment saying that you want a free suitcase, because our friends at
you got to run the thing. Run the thing.
I will. I'm looking for it. Our friends at Vanguard. Happy to thank you for that technical. Our friends at Vanguard Release are happy to give a lucky viewer listener a free suitcase. So for a chance at a free wine suitcase, just leave a comment saying, I want a free suitcase. I will leave it up to them to decide who gets the suitcase and for how long you have to comment. We didn't make up those rules in advance. This was kind of a last minute promo that they offered to give. So, and then going back to the idea that we need to sell wine, and I don't want to get into the whole situation we're in. Again, we can talk about that as well at another time. But I do want to say to everyone that they should please buy wine. And
I'll second that. Yes, absolutely.
Very important to buy wine. The best way to buy wine is if you somehow can get wine directly from the winery. Sometimes you can't, so definitely buy it from a store. And stores, obviously, and restaurants play an important role in the ecosystem. But right now, if it's difficult for you to get to a store and your restaurants are closed, please go to covenantwines.com and you can order a lot of the incredible wines, both from Israel and California, that Jeff and the team make. And if you don't see a wine there that you want or that we talked about today, drop a line through the contact form on there, and I'm sure somebody will try and help you.
Absolutely.
People here in Israel, Jeff, is there a separate website here in Israel they can go to?
Yeah, it's Covenant Wines. I'm
.co.
looking at my wife here. It's covenantwines.co.il. Okay, covenantwines.co.il. But if you go to covenantwines.com, you can also go. There's a link that goes directly to our Israeli website. And by the way, I don't know what's going on in Israel. I don't think wine shops are open right now, are they, in Israel? So we in Israel, we are delivering, as I assume you are as well. We deliver wines. You can order them directly off our website in Israel. And in California, it's the same deal. Wine shops are not open. So we are delivering also around the country. I'm not sure what's happening in New York. I think wine shops are open in New York, but I'm not.
Curbside delivery.
Okay. So yeah, so support your local retailers if you can. That's very important. They're an important part of our marketing and sales program. But if you can't, for whatever reason, it's relatively easy to buy wine online today.
Yes. So just go to Covenant Wines, and then obviously a plug for my own particular winery, which is JezreelWinery.com. You are welcome to buy our wines as well. And I have to say another plug, which is that we learned a tremendous amount. For those people who were listening before, will know that Jeff made wines for a number of years here at our facility, and he taught us a tremendous amount, particularly around blending, but not only just overall, everybody here learned a tremendous amount. So we have to say thank you to Jeff for all the time that he spent with us and the ongoing mentorship. So thank you, Jeff. and you can taste some of the results of that if you buy some of our wines as well, and enjoy both California, both Israel and California, and have a good time. So thank everybody for tuning in. Somebody just said wine shops are open in New York.
Great. Good to know.
Oh wait, somebody just quickly asked, and we'll answer them right now. Obviously, we'll answer a lot of these comments when we go offline, which is that are Covenant wines available in Seattle? And I think the answer should be yes, but are Covenant wines available?
You know, I don't believe we have a normal distributorship in Seattle, but I do believe, Jody, can we ship to Washington? Yeah. Yeah, okay. So we can ship to Washington, and we have a pretty good system of second-day air right up the coast, so you can get the wines there.
Okay, so thank you, Jeff, for coming on.
Thank you. Great to be on the show.
Yeah,
I hope it's the beginning of many shows that you will host. You do a great job of it.
Thank you, and have a great day, everyone. L'chaim, drink up. I will be finishing this bottle tonight, and I will probably.
I'll have this one for lunch.
Yeah. I'll probably be drinking both of these today.
Yeah, well, we're not going to wait for tonight. We're going to start with lunch on this. We're just going to. I think we're going to stop after lunch today because too much good wine.
All right, have a good day, everyone. Thank you very much, Jeff.
Okay.